Hello, this is Tom Sheppard. I'm the Chief Naturalist for the County Parks. Thought I'd try to give you a visual tour of one of our parks. I've chosen today to do the Sourlands Mountains down in East Amwell. And for me, the walk always starts by looking across the road at the neighboring property where a unique geological formation is called Three Brothers. Most of the rock up here is diabase, and these are three very large rocks that sit atop one larger rock. I know it has some Native American lore to it about three brothers being turned into stone, but most of the lore does elude me today. But just wanted to point that fact out to you in regards to the park if you come up this way once parks reopen. We're going to start walking down the trails. It won't be a continuous video, but it will be in regards to features that I find and would show off on a nature walk at this preserve. Okay, I'm now just off the main parking lot. Just give you a quick surround look. Sourlands is called that because of all the rock formation up here. It was never prime farm ground. Because of that, it's home to vernal pools and some other things that we should talk about. What you're looking at is a vernal pool that we know that various species of frog and salamander can breed in. Vernal pools are pools that will temporarily dry out of water, so there's never any fish predation on the property. If you look at some of the larger stones here at Sourlands, you'll notice that they actually have cracks, and you can even find cuts or iron pegs in them because a lot of stone was cut up here on the ridge, and much of it was used to build stone buildings and structures down towards the Trenton area. I'm a couple hundred yards down the trail now, giving you a panoramic of where I'm at. I know the Somerset County Parks also has a property called Sourlands, and they refer to an area as Devil's Half Acre. It's a large boulder field in their preserve, but this is what I like to call our Devil's Half Acre. There's no possible way that anything here could ever be farmed if you can see the various amounts of stone material around here. So again, this is where I refer to as the Hunterdon County's Devil's Half Acre. What I'm looking at are these green sort of umbrella-shaped plants. It's called maize apple. It's one of the first native spring ephemerals that will be popping up. They do flower in May, hence the name. And to see it, what you need to do is actually find one, none of which is pictured here, that's double-stalked, or double-headed, I should say. And in the V will be this little structure that forms that will create the flower. But as it forms, it kind of prematurely looks like an apple. And hence the name May apple for the fruit structure and flowering in May. Just found one a little further up the trail. But as you can see, there's that little formation forming at the V formation. And if you come back in about 2 weeks or so, that will probably be in bloom. And it's a nice little flower hidden sort of under the leaf cover. I'm at one of the creek crossings in the park. It's just an area because of the culvert piping. You need to be careful crossing. But it's a nice place to pause a moment. Try to look for around, listen for wildlife, because whenever water's added to the scene, things are a bit more diverse. I've caught in some snakes here, garter snakes, black rat snakes. Not that I'm encouraging you to do that. Just be aware that we are in nature's home and there is wildlife around us. I've also been hearing some calls, a couple species of woodpecker, tufted titmouse, towhees have been calling while I've been walking along. I'm near the first intersection with the yellow trail. These flower or leaves that are in front of me are another native wildflower. If you notice, there is a bit of mottling to them. This is called Trout Lily. And again, hopefully soon the flowers will be up and giving some color to the area. As you can see, I'm in front of a tree that's been attacked. It is dead and dying, but this is actually fresh woodpecker damage. You can see some chips down at the base. This is one of the parks that I know is home to breeding pileated woodpeckers, the largest woodpecker we have, about 14 inches with the crested head. And they are known for attacking and making large holes into the tree masses as they feed. Okay, notice the one acorn or nut in front of me that's been chewed with a hole. As you can see, looking around, there actually are a few of them. And this tree here has a hole at the bottom. Another animal that you'll never see here because they're nocturnal is the southern flying squirrel. They do exist in here. They are active at night. You can hear them calling at night if you were here for a nighttime program, if we were offering such. But otherwise, they are arboreal. They're up in the tree masses, jumping around, but they will come down to forage and feed on these nuts. Actually, it's more of a hickory nut, it looks like. Since they are about half the size of a gray squirrel or smaller, they don't have the bite that enables them to crush the nut open, so they actually chew their way inside to feed. And these holes in the nuts are clear evidence that they're around in this area. Okay, as you can see, there's a vine going up this tree. It is actually poison ivy. It's not showing its classic form, where it would be covered with the tendrils that look like hair. It only has a few scattered about, but it's still showing enough tendrils that people shouldn't have a hard enough time identifying it. And of course, we don't want to touch it. It's not actually the physical plant, but the oil on the plant that gives us the rash. And there is plenty of poison ivy around. Most of the vines I've seen in the park have actually been poison ivy vines. I'm trying to show you a whole shrub, an understory tree. As you know, it is springtime and things are freshly sprouting, including the plant or the tree material. This is actually one of my favorite. It's called American Hornbeam, or also known as ironwood. It gets that name for the pattern on the bark that kind of looks like the sinew or the what you see in the medical shows or the pictures of like a muscle pattern. It is actually a very hard wood. This little tree here, if I had a little handsaw, would take me a little bit of time to cut because it's that dense. It's also an indicator of very poor soil conditions, which is what the park basically has to offer. I know the picture isn't showing it well, but there's actually an American robin up there singing, doing sort of its cheery up, cheery low type call. So you can find robins away from fields and lawns. It's a call you should probably want to get familiar with if you're going to try entertaining the bird world. There's two birds that both have been seen here. Just flew off if you saw the motion. The scarlet tanager sounds like a robin, but in desperate need of voice lessons. And then if you can make the call a bit sweeter, that would be the call of the rose-breasted grosbeak. If you can catch it in the center of the picture, flittering, just dropped down and flew away. That was a hermit thrush. It's a cousin of the robin, using the underbrush in here, and may even possibly breed in this park. I'm coming up on one of my favorite areas. I'll do a panoramic of it when we get down here a little bit further. I'm just trying to move to see if I can find the thrush again. Okay, it's sitting over on the log. Sort of center location. It's a very nondescript bird. If, believe it or not, I am zoomed in. But if you could see it, it has a bit of a rufous or orangey colored tail and is unique sighting for this little walk. Okay, I'm going to let it be now. I'm about 3/5 maybe down the what we call the service road. This is an upland marsh area in the middle of Sourlands. It's sort of a little bowl-shaped area. It gives a chance for some diverse habitat. There's many things calling around me, actually. It has a little creek that flows out of here. And if you do read nature books, there's one called Roadside Geology of New Jersey. He talks about this region and what I believe he calls the Rocky Brook, which this is a part of. And it's a stream that in times, because of how rocky the ground is up here and all, actually sort of runs underneath the surface of the ground. It's not always completely open to show standing water or running water in the creek. It's a great place to be in February, March after the first warm rains. I've been up here for wood frogs, which we are past the season for. And I've had as many as probably 400 plus frogs calling in this region. Okay, again, I'm up to the intersection with the blue trail, and as you can maybe see in the background, I'll try to zoom in, there are some large rock formations here. This is one where we do take the trail up to and by. But I just wanted to use it as a means of a reminder that when we are visiting the parks, we are the guests. This is the wildlife's home. And while it's okay to step off the trail a foot or so to get a better angle to see something, it doesn't give us the right just to go blazing where we want. Because again, everything needs their sanctuary, their private places. Think of it this way: when you host a party or such, you expect all your guests to stay in the common areas and not being in other places of your home. Opening your closets, opening your dressers in your bedroom. Remember that we are the guests, and if we don't stay to where we should be, we will actually flush away all our wildlife. Because they won't have the sanctuary that they need to be in the park. Yeah, I am at the end of the service road. I'm up here where it junctions with the White Trail. Please take the White Trail. This is the turning around point or the curve in the trail system. What looks like the continuation of the service road is actually not. It's erosion, drainage over the years. Because remember, that as the name of the park implies, it is the Sourlands. We are actually almost at our border limit. The property adjacent that way is another property that does have history but is owned by the state, and that's the Lindbergh estate. This is the one place where you will get a bit of a hill climb. There's probably about a 200-foot elevation up over maybe not even a third of a mile, I would say. But this is sort of the high point within our property. And again, we're going to continue down the White Trail and see if we can find some other things to show off about the park. This is one of our woodland salamanders. It's the lead phase of the red-backed salamander. Again, salamanders do well in this preserve with all the vernal pools. The largest one in the county is actually here, called the spotted salamander, but they really only come up for the breeding season and then spend the rest of their time underground in terrestrial holes going after insects and worms, as you can see that this one is trying to do right now. Again, that was the lead-back phase of the red-backed salamander. Again, even though we're in the upper end of the White Trail where it is drier, there are some vegetation around that indicate that areas can still be wet. This is again another one of our native plants. You've probably already identified it as Jack in the Pulpit. If I lift up the hood, there's Jack supposedly sitting in his perch looking over the area. It's actually the female part of the plant, the style that would eventually make the fruit and seeds of the flower. You see these formations, they're called cankers. These are spots of the tree that have been wounded for various reasons, from human action to insect damage. And then what happens is the tree, it's a growth to close the wound, covers it with the bark to keep, like we get a scab when we get a cut. But it is a growth that actually stays with the tree and grows with the life of the tree. So these things can get very large. Sometimes they might be referred to as a burl. Out west one time in Washington State, I did see one that was actually almost the size of a VW bug on a redwood tree. What we're looking at here is actually the root structure of an American tree. As you can see, this tree here broke off at the top. So the main trunk is not doing that well, even though there's a few branches on it. But the beech has the ability to put out sucker growth from its roots, and these little saplings that you think when you quickly walk past it are actually all one tree. They're actually coming right out of the root. So it's actually clonal growth. And it's a way the tree is increasing its crown mass to collect sunlight and process the chlorophyll it needs to survive. In front of you is a fern coming out of the ground. I believe this is a small Christmas fern. But as they grow, they have a term that's usually referred to them as a fiddlehead. And as you can see at the tips of the leaf, as it's still rolled up, and is slowly unfurling. So this here is the fiddlehead. Again, evergreens do exist amongst ferns. The Christmas fern is one of the evergreens. So if you were here in wintertime, you would still see these guys about with the leaves out, and maybe you even have some holiday decorations with ferns amongst them. This is the big creek crossing on the Yellow Trail, one of two. Just a reminder that they do exist, and that sometimes when you come here it will be a wet foot crossing, but you just need to be prepared for it, or you will do the service road in and out and walk what you can. It's still worth the visit, whatever you decide. But again, if you plan on crossing the trail, just be aware, or the Yellow Trail, just be aware that two creek crossings do exist. This here is an ash tree, and as you can see, it is under major duress. It's been invaded by emerald ash borer. If I can get in close, there are actually small holes that you can see where the insect has emerged. and continue to propagate in the area. It is a major invasive and has the strong likelihood that it will take out all our adult ash trees in the forest. These trees are something you should try to avoid, because as they start to die, they will get brittle and eventually are going to fall down on their own. County is trying to take out the ones that are a safety hazard around more inhabited locations, parking lots, facilities and all, but trees in the middle of the woods are going to probably be left to themselves to be taken care of. Again, this is just one of the unfortunates of international trade that this insect has got here, and hopefully the federal government and other entities which are working on the problem can ultimately come up with a means to help the tree, the young growth that's going to continue and all, so that we won't completely lose our ashes in the woods. Here I am returning back to the parking lot. Elapsed time's probably been about an hour and a half. We did the service road to White Trail to Yellow Trail back to service road. I'd rate it as an easy to moderate walk, the moderate being the stream crossings and the wet areas and stones that you have to kind of work around. Distance was probably just shy of 2 miles, but I strongly encourage you to come to the park and visit it when you get a chance and the park's reopen. If we did the same walk 2 weeks later, naturally I'd be pointing out other things to you. And of course there were some things that with you being here with me on a hike or so, you'd probably inquire about on your own. But again, please come and visit the parks when they reopen. And if you ever have a question about something you encounter in the park, give the naturalist a call or email, and we'll gladly try to answer your inquiry. Hope you enjoyed what I showed you, and hopefully I'll be doing another park in a day or two to keep reminding you of what's out there.